Hi, welcome back to Chapter 3 of my video memoir for my children. Thanks for joining me. When I started this series, my goal was to fast forward straight to the time I joined the military, to the moment I finally took control of my own destiny, and as I sat down to tell the story, I realized I couldn't just skip over the foundations. To understand the man that I am and was, and what I became, you have to understand the forces that shaped my childhood. So this chapter is a dedicated look at the dynamics of my early life, specifically focused on my mother, my brother, and my stepfather, Dan Barber. I want to look objectively at the psychology of the environment I was trapped in, because this math of how we lived back then explains exactly why I had to fight so hard to survive later. It started with a pattern. In 1975, after leveling false allegations against my father and taking money from my father's business, my mother executed what I now recognize as a classic tactical move that women often participate in, a geographical reset. She pulled us out of Sacramento and moved us across the country to start fresh where nobody knew her history, entirely to protect her reputation. But when you flee the scene of wreckage to create a vacuum, someone is going to fill it. Enter my stepfather, Dan Barber. Dan Barber was a deeply insecure, volatile man who looked at a vulnerable single mother with 3 kids as an instant kingdom to dominate. To the outside world, he tried to project the mask of a savior or a high flyer. He'd give us a great Christmas, take flying lessons, buy us some fancy dinners, but the internal reality was pure chaos. Objectively, the facts of his life speak for themselves. And to be honest with you, I don't like to just say things and say, trust me, bruh, or, want to just give my perception or my looking through the life of my lens, because it is entirely possible that children can have the facts wrong, their memories can fade, they don't understand the context. So basically what I'm doing here is to try to build a little bit of credibility, because like I said, I don't think when someone's telling a story, I think facts are included. And whether they be circumstantial or not, you just have to, look at the facts, okay? Objectively, the facts of his life speak for themselves. He was a man who ran from the police for bad check fraud. He was a man driven by such explosive, unchecked rage that during a domestic emergency where my toddler brother accidentally lacerated his throat with a snorkel, Dan's immediate instinct was not to just take my brother to the hospital. He sought out the snorkel in which my brother had injured himself with, to stomp it on the ground, a plastic snorkel on the cement, so hard that he broke his own foot. That is the level of irrational instability we lived with. There was a time where my brother and I were, just before his injury, had slid down some stairs on a piece of cardboard. My brother ended up bumping his head, got hurt, and so my stepfather was supervising us, and his first reaction was not to console or help my brother. My brother wasn't injured. He just bumped his head and was crying. He was a baby. He's 2 years old. His first reaction was to come over and wrap his knuckles on my head, giving me 3 lumps. My mother came home and found the lumps, and they got into... My mother, there were times where I think she was trying to protect me, because I remember them fighting about it, because I had visible lumps on my head. Now, if you want to understand the exact nature of the selective neglect I face, look at this car, okay? I was 10 years old in the Cub Scouts. My mother did try to give us some type of normalcy, to her credit. And they did enroll me when I was 10 years old living in Redmond, Washington. She enrolled me in the Cub Scouts. I was learning the Cub Scout codes and practices and all the things that comes with Cub Scouts. I just remember having this little Cub Scout book, and, you learn how to tie knots. So but my stepfather was not present most of the time. He was working, and the times that he was there, he was abusive, or he spent his time with his son, which is sort of understandable. But this is why I think, stepfathers can be a blessing or they can be a curse. So I was 10 years old in the Cub Scouts, the Pinewood Derby. Okay, I joined the Pinewood Derby. It was a father-son project. It's supposed to be a father-son project. That's what the whole thing was meant for, to create a bond with father and son. Instead, Dan dumped me with a raw block of pine, two random paints, and an incorrect sander and told me to figure it out. He didn't help me one bit. You can tell by the photo there was no help. Now look at the what Pinewood Derbies averagely look like. I just did a search on Google and just tried to see I remember what the cars looked like at the Pinewood Derby. Some had little windshields. They were professionally polished, painted, accessories, weights. My car was so bad that when they put it at the top of the ramp, because they had this like big high 10 or 12 foot ramp track, and when the cars were let out of the gate, mine got stuck at the top. It was humiliating. And then they said Bruno Barry number 13. And back in the 80s, in case you didn't know this, but Bruno was typically a dog's name. I know that we all enjoy Bruno Mars music today, and there's a lot of positive things around the name Bruno. But back then, Bruno was a dog's name, and now they dumped me at the Pinewood Derby by myself. My stepdad wasn't there, my mom didn't show up, so I was there with this big crowd of fathers and sons by myself, being made fun of for my name. It was. Now I'm very proud of this car. I've kept it for nearly 50 years. It's sort of a token of my childhood. I don't know why I kept it, because I've thrown away so many other keepsakes growing up, but this one, for some reason, really stuck with me. I kept it through the years, and just recently I tried to give it to Bella, but she broke a wheel off, so I had to put it back up in the closet. So I built this entirely on my own. And when I went to that event alone as a 10-year-old, my car got stuck at the top of the track. It wouldn't even roll. The crowd laughed at my name, and I stood there completely humiliated. I have kept this delicate piece of wood for over 45 years. I'm proud of it now because it proves I didn't quit, but back then it was a physical proof that I was entirely on my own in that family. Because of that relentless hidden cruelty by my stepfather, I can't go into every single cruelty that he did to me, but he did it when people were not there. He's a very, very terrible person. I'm not airing this to put out my dirty laundry and speak bad about this man, but I have to, because it shaped me so much in my childhood. I will never forget. I was 11 years old. Dan's pattern of cutting corners, reckless impulsivity finally caught up to him in the sky. He crashed a plane through his own negligence, killing himself and 6 others. This was during a time when my stepfather, after he was on the run from the cops, he came down to my mother's and us. He was very nice to me. He was wanting to reconcile with my mother. I remember walking into the room and seeing my mother and my brother huddled around the phone. We had just got notified of my stepfather's death. Now, keep in mind that, like I said, my stepfather was trying to reconcile with my mother. He was taking us out. He had corrected whatever was going on with his check writing fraud charges, and he got a job with the company, and they were for his company. So he was taking flying lessons on the Cessna at Executive Airport. He didn't have enough hours to fly. He was not licensed. He forged the documents, and then he went and flew the plane. So when my stepfather was trying to reconcile with my mother in Sacramento in 1981, my stepfather said that he was going to, because he was being very nice to me. He was trying to be nice in a weird way. It was very uncomfortable, but I could see what he was doing. He was trying to schmooze my mom, into taking him back. So what happened was, and my mother made some beans the previous night or the previous days up to that point, and the beans were poisoned on the stove. And I ate the beans and became violently sick the night before we were supposed to I was supposed to fly with him to Reno on this plane with his coworkers or his colleagues. So, in the morning time, I was already violently sick, and so I wasn't able to go. He went to the airport, took possession of the plane, got in the plane with his 6 coworkers, flew at night to Reno, wasn't qualified, didn't know how to fly the plane, crashed the plane into the side of the mountain in Reno, Nevada, killing all aboard, himself and through criminal negligence. So this is what I'm saying. This is not when you follow these patterns of what this person did. He married a single mom with 3 kids. He was abusive when no one was around. He was a violent, vindictive, horrible person. Now, the reason why I say horrible person, because it's easy to say to just labels. Oh, they're a piece of shit, or they're a horrible person. Today, the man I am today, I cannot imagine. Number one, dating or being with a single mom with 3 kids, with 3 different dads in a family, 2 different dads. So that speaks to his optionality. He was a super nice guy when everybody was around. He had this pattern of being super nice, but then in private, extremely cruel. And then the check fraud, the playing negligent. If he had survived the plane crash, he would be in prison probably for life. So I'm saying you can take my word for it, the things that I'm telling you, and then you can just look at the outward circumstantial evidence of what kind of person this was. That's not a normal thing to do. And how he tragically ended his own life and the lives of others. Now, when they got the call, I remember walking into the room and seeing my mother and my brother huddled around the phone, crying hysterically as they got the news. And as an 11-year-old boy looking at them, I didn't feel a shred of sadness. I felt an overwhelming, profound sense of relief. The monster was gone. And make no mistake, this man was a monster. I know that's probably, I don't like throwing around terms like monster. I don't want to dehumanize him. Dan Barber was a human being. It's sad, tragic that he lost his life in a plane wreck, but it was from his own doing, and he acted in ways that killed other people. I don't know how else to classify a person like that. He's not a serial killer. He didn't kill, people with a knife or a gun, but he might as well have. I mean, the end results are the same. Whether a serial killer kills 6 people on purpose or incompetent, psychologically unstable, volatile, bad person through his negligence kills 6 people, I don't see a big gap between those two. I mean, there is a gap, but the results are the same. And so when I walked into the room, I just was like, "Hey, Mom, what's for dinner?" I remember I told friends this story when I was a kid, and they laughed. "Well, you're messed up, man. You just went in there and just told your mom's crying because your dad's dead, and your brother just lost his father, and you walk in and just ask for what's for dinner. Man, you're messed up." And I felt shame over that for years. Like, yeah, well, that was kind of messed up how I did that. But I was ashamed that I felt good that he was dead. I was happy. Like there was this overwhelming sense of safety now. The man was gone. And I didn't care. Mom, I was so happy I got hungry. And I was just recovering from my sickness. Like I had been almost 3 days without eating because I couldn't hold anything down. I was extremely hungry. "Mom, what's for dinner?" And she'd, "Get the fuck out of here." She screamed at me to get out of there. And I walked away feeling an intense, deep satisfaction that the man was dead. It might sound cold, I know, but I was a child who had been terrorized. It was the first day of freedom. It was the moment the dark shadow over my childhood finally began to lift. So anyway, I just wanted to dedicate this video, and also I want to dedicate it to my brother Kevin. And I want to give my condolences to Kevin for his father. Oh, I don't even know why I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing. But I do need to tell you about my brother's character. And when they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, that is I never really thought about that before. But, there's a saying that you are your father's son. And sometimes, even when children aren't raised with their father, they tend to take on their traits, their psychological makeup. So let me just tell you some facts about my brother. And then in a later video, maybe I'll tell you the details in between. But let me just give you the factual things about my brother. My brother, from his early age, from that point on, my brother has never left home. He continues to live with my mother to this day as a 50-year-old man. In his entire life, he has never worked more than 1 or 2 years of work. He constantly complains of chronic injuries that he tries to fraud Social Security out of, and Social Security denies him every time. My brother has 7 DUI drunk drivings. When he was 15 or so and I had joined the military, he stole a motorcycle that I had out of the garage when I left for the military. He took it joyriding without my permission and with my mother's permission, and he tore off his thumb. They had to reconstruct his hand. His thumb was nearly torn off at the ligament. Now, in addition to that, he began driving drunk a lot. My brother's an alcoholic. 7 DUIs. 7, count them. He did a year in the county jail, and then he also got into a bad wreck that I went to go pick him up from the hospital one time when he was about 25, I think. I can't remember. He wrecked his friend's car with all his friends in the car, and he ended up lacerating his nose from the tip to the bottom to his lip. Essentially, I remember walking into the hospital room to go pick him up to see if he was okay. And the plastic surgeon had his nose completely filleted open, and I could see all his nose hairs. And because it's my brother, and listen, I love my brother. I love all the people in my family. Like, I have a connection to them that they're my family. Even though I don't talk to them, I love my brother. And usually gory things don't bother me. But when I saw my brother's essentially his entire face opened up and I could see into his nasal passageways, I almost threw up. Like, it bothered me. I was like, oh, my poor brother. And I even did, and the cops showed up because he had been driving drunk when it happened, but they showed up later. And the cop showed up and was asking me if my brother had been drinking, and I stonewalled the cop. I protected my brother. Like, I didn't, although looking back on it now, I should have said, yep, he told me he was driving drunk. I wish I would have told the cops that he had been drunk driving, been a witness. I should have helped convict him. But I didn't. I figured he'd learned his lessons, but he didn't. My brother couldn't keep jobs. He lives with my mom to this day. When I was facing my false allegations, and I remember there was a pattern that women do. They move away whenever they make false allegations or wreck their life. They move to a different city or state to try to reset their life. That's what my mother did. That's what my ex-wife did. And during that time, I was facing false allegations. I was asking my brother to help me move. And what he did was I paid him some money and some furniture. And I said, hey, come on this day to help me move. He didn't show up. Then whenever I got the false allegations, what my brother did was he went and told my mother that he came to the home and he heard through the door, he heard me having sex with my son. This is what he claims to my mother. Now, he did that because I was trying to hold him accountable for the money and the furniture that I gave him and then him not helping me. And instead, he made up this horrible lie about me to further put a wedge between because my family at the time, when I got these false allegations, they were sort of believing him. They were like, were you abusive? Were you doing this? And even though it was all completely not true, my brother telling that lie helped cement the wedge and cast enough shadow of a doubt on me. Now, never mind that the holes in his story is, well, if you saw me abusing or if you knew I was abusing my son, why didn't you call the police? But he never reported that. He just said, oh, this, by the way. So my brother's record speaks for itself. He's my father, my stepfather and my brother are two, one's the tree, one's the apple. And to this day, he refuses to talk to me. I've tried to reconcile with him, at least put that I'm open to him apologizing, but my mother won't let me speak to him. They won't even let me know where they live. I'm the black sheep of the family. So anyway, that is chapter 3. Thanks for joining me. See you in chapter 4. I promise I'll get to my military stuff soon. Thank you.